the Darth Maul flip around thing.
When I was 1, I climbed
and
up
one
a
time
shelf,
I accidentally
fell off the
flipped
shelf,
a little too hard,
and then
lost
hit
my
the back
balance,
of my
and
head
then
on
went
the
over
edge
this
of
way.
another
And so
shelf.
this scar
Well done,
here
Phil.
I have a
is
triangle
the,
scar on the back of my
result
head.
of my head colliding with the
My
corner.
little
see it
brother
as a
Is it
shape.
going sideways a little?
When he was a baby, he was wearing footy pajamas in the garage, and he slipped and he fell and hit the corner of his eye, like his eyebrow on the corner of one of the cabinets, and it split his little head open, and it was bleeding, and my grandma was freaking out.
I think I was 8 or 9 years old at the time.
And I just calmly picked him
I was 10.
up,
I was 10 years old.
cleaned him off, and then
my 10-year-old
glued
crush at
his
that time
eyebrow shut with
was
surgical
sitting on
glue
a
that
podium
we
in
had,
front of
and
me.
taped it.
And
He
so I
was
slipped
fine.
on the thing and literally fell head over heels.
Who's this?
Nico.
For the girl, but
I
I
was 12.
popped my shin on.
Oh, is that where
it
you
had
got the
the
eyebrow
little
scar
ridges, and so I just blew that.
That's where he got the eyebrow
I'm
scar.
bleeding.
That's what, yeah.
And I was like,
My younger brother used to
That's like my
climb.
dad's,
it's like, oh,
right?
there's a little bit of blood. It's just blood. So I went
my-
over to my sister and was like, hey,
My dad was
I'm
teaching my
bleeding.
brother how
And
to
she was
swing a
like,
golf
no
club.
worries,
Oh,
I've got a
boy.
Band-Aid in my purse. She pulls out
My brother was getting
flex tape.
frustrated, so he's trying to
And
like,
then I
do
went
it.
back,
And then
I
he'd swing the
come
golf
out
club
to,
up and hit him in the
go
side of
home,
the
and it's
face.
just like,
So he's got a scar right here
hanging
or
out of my
something.
chin now.
My brother still has pencil lead in the side of
And
his
then he's
head
like, yeah,
from when he
I'm gonna take
jammed
you
his
to,
head onto a pencil.
So
He's
you ripped
an
like a whole
idiot.
piece
Oh
of your
boy,
shin?
Tony does a lot of stupid
like
things.
there's hole in the chin.
Sounds like it.
My younger brother used
It's
to
just graphite.
climb out the
Actually,
back
not
of
lead, so he's fine.
the car trunk.
It's
It's like we had a
Why doesn't he get rid of it?
minivan kind of thing.
He just didn't. It wasn't hurting him. It was too deep to cut out ourselves, and there's no point in getting surgery for it if it's not hurting him.
Just a hardcore tattoo. And then it's like,
Yeah. It's really small. It's like a tiny piece.
Yeah.
You can barely see it. I think it's probably gone now.
And then there was
But
another time where I tripped
it was there
The
for
graphite is blood cell.
It's fine. It wasn't lead, so he didn't get lead.
I don't think I've
poisoning.
ever broken
My
into
brother
a
would
or
cut
his forehead open
Well, if
on
it was
the
in his
left
head.
for
My
the car trunk.
Oh my gosh.
broken a bone. I've got a couple.
That's why the Romans went nuts, because they used
Yeah, they used lead plates. They were idiots.
they used lead in their they used lead in their aqueducts too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why they all died.
But pencil lead doesn't actually have lead. It's
Welcome to the show. Today we'll be meeting the production team behind the Shepherd of Life, a student game developed for senior year. We'll then segue into a playthrough of the game and then show you how you can get merchandise, and when you can download it. Stay tuned. Hello guys, welcome to the show today. We'll be meeting the cast and production team of Shepherd of Light right over here, and then we'll be introducing you to them momentarily. And here we go. And
My name is David.
David?
My name is Matthew.
I'm Phil.
I'm Dominic.
I'm Austin.
I'm Sarah.
I'm Adriana.
All right, and then what were some of your guys' roles in the production of Shepherd of Light? We'll start with you there, David.
I was the lead animator.
The lead animator? Okay, and then what went into the animation process for this kind of game?
I worked on like the rigging and making sure all the animation keys were set.
Position? Okay, awesome. And then Matthew, for your role there?
All right. Throughout the project, I took the role as like environment artist and also level designer during the early stages.
Level designer, and so what would go into that from your perspective a little bit there?
In the level design side, it was mostly just a lot of plotting out levels and like figuring out what the puzzles are going to be, and then environment artist, a lot of just set dressing and building out the environments.
So almost like a puzzle master for the game. And
Kind
is that
of.
one way of thinking about it? Okay, alrighty. And then Phil, your roles?
I was a prop artist, so I made in-game objects like fences and walls and ruins and the staff that the shepherd uses, things like that.
Okay, alrighty. And then Dominic, your role?
I was the main programmer for Shepherd of Light, though I also contributed to design, visual effects, and music.
Alrighty. And then Austin?
I was the other animator that worked on Shepherd of Light. I did a lot of the sheep animations and some animation for the wolf.
Okay, alrighty. And Sarah?
I was concept artist and some of the 2D assets for visual bits.
Some of the 2D assets, okay. And then Audie?
I was the art director for the project, so I did a lot of like kind of overseeing the general aesthetic and then kind of filling in multiple roles when it came to like the characters and then some of the environment, and then I helped Matt with set dressing, so
Okay,
yeah.
set dressing. And then as far as the organization aspect, I know we were discussing earlier that you kind of became the main honcho on the project, the one calling the shots. Like, how has the division of labor worked out for you guys there?
So we kind of split it. James and I kind of headed it up, and then James was the producer. So we kind of split it into like design and programming, and then kind of like the art side. And so I can kind of speak to the art in that we kind of divided it up into models, textures, and then 2D assets. So like, for example, Phil would model something, and then another one of our team members would put the colors and the textures on it, and then we would deliver that to Matt, who would then implement it
programming.
into the design.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. And then as far as you guys personally, so what were some games that perhaps got you into gaming in the first place and inspired you to want to design games and create games for a living there? And then let's start and go backwards down the list this time. Audie.
I think the game that made me kind of know that I wanted to make video games was Fallout New Vegas. I played that, oh my God, forever ago now, but I had so much fun like exploring the world, and then like all the art was so cool to me, and I was like, I want to create like that. I want to make art like that.
Okay. Sarah?
Mine, I'd have to say Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess.
Twilight. Okay.
Partially from in the game, just exploring it and all of the different styles of the different environmental areas, but also I got the Hyrule Historia concept art book, where I actually got to see the inside process of when they made the game, and it was like, that's what I want to do. So that's where it came from for me.
All right. And then Austin?
For me, it was the original Super Mario Brothers. I played that a lot growing up, and many other Mario games. And like, yeah, just inspired me to want to make a game, or help make a game.
All righty. And then Dominic?
Well, I've been playing games for a long time before I had a strong desire to make them. Or I would say I'd always wanted to make games, but the first time I really realized that games as things that like small groups of only like 1 to like 5 people can make was with a small independent puzzle game called World of Goo that I had played on the Wii.
And then Phil?
So yeah, pretty late.
So my favorite game was and is still Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic, and it's been my favorite game for pretty much as long as I can remember. But it's also the game that made me interested in game design because it's not only I think the best Star Wars game, it's also just one of the best role-playing games ever. It's got such a unique blend of good story and writing and voice acting and gameplay that I think just is great, and I would love to make something like that someday.
All right. Matthew?
One of the games that I like, or this one of the first games I remember playing was like the Roller Coaster Tycoon series, especially the first one. I just always love like building coasters and kind of designing these little parks, and I guess that's kind of where it all started for me.
Okay. And then David, your game?
Well, one of my favorite games is the original Dark Souls, but I think the one that first got me into thinking about game design was The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening.
Alrighty.
So that really got me thinking about like creating different maps and levels.
Alrighty. Sounds good. Thank you guys for the introductions. We are going to turn now to the feature that the school put together for this project, and we hope that you guys enjoy it. Take a look.
Shepherd of Light is a resource-based puzzle game in which the player collects sheep and places them to progress through the levels and to avoid wolves.
The idea for the world was that you have these beings that require light to survive. These light sheep that you collect and shepherd in the world are like the main source of that light, so they're extremely important to like the culture and the people.
It's based off the Good Shepherd story. There's a father character who sort of represents God. He's like the main shepherd and you're his son. He has to leave and you have to manage the sheep now. And then that's when all the wolves come, all the evil and darkness comes and scatters them away from you. And so your job now is to herd the sheep back together and bring them back to safety.
The idea for the game was that we wanted a stylized aesthetic that tailored to the strengths of our artist. So we went for more basic characters with like very stark colors and very like basic designs, and then went for a more detailed environment. Each level aesthetically reflects the powers of the sheep. So for example, at the beginning of the game, you get a storm sheep, which has kind of like electrical powers. So the first level, you're progressing through these ancient ruin type things that are powered by the storm sheep. So everything has kind of a blue and green cast.
A large portion of my role has been sort of acting as the mediator between like some of the 3D artists and some like the design and programming artists. So it's mostly been like importing assets that Audie's given me and helping her out with building out materials that she can use to texture some of the objects. And I was also like helping out with James in the level design department. Each level is sort of designed around the newest sheep that the player is given, and we kind of built each of the levels around introducing the new mechanic of that sheep.
Then our like favorite custom mechanic is our wolf zones, which are these areas that it actually plays off our theme of light and darkness, because the sheep are like your light sheep and then the wolves are like the darkness. And so what you need is you need enough light to traverse through the wolf areas. At the very beginning of the game, you'll be given a sheep and then there's like a wolf you have to get past, and he's afraid of the sheep light. What we wanted to do is like the immersive light versus dark, and so that's where wolf zones actually came from. The feel we're trying to get is like, imagine that you're holding a torch and there's a bunch of wolves that are sort of growling and coming at you, and you sort of like wave that torch to get rid of them. It's sort of the same feel, but it makes it about the resources and it makes it more about the sheep, and it really plays the light and dark effects.
A lot of game companies seek the value in having like a release game under someone's portfolio, because it shows that they've already had the experience with the team.
So we definitely are making the game for it to be a portfolio piece for everybody, for sure. It's going to be free. We're going to get it on as many platforms as we can possibly get it on, so that people can link it to their art stations.
This game will provide us with a really, really valuable portfolio piece so that we can show employers like, hey,
we may not have worked in the industry, but we've made a game which shows them that we have the capability to adapt into a team and to fit into a workflow and be an asset to that workflow. We have a really awesome team, and we've gotten a lot of outside help from other students, even if they're not in the game design program, and everyone has been extremely supportive of our team and like what we're trying to do. Seeing the community kind of like support us and do what they can for us has been really cool and very like motivating and inspiring.
And all right. And now we'll be discussing some of the difficulties that went into the game process. David, what were some of the difficulties you encountered or greatest challenges encountered in the making of the game?
Well, for me, it was getting some of the animation just right. Like, for example, working on the wolves. We tried to get an animation of a strafe where they're actually moving just left to right, but since quadrupeds don't normally move that way naturally, it was a bit of a challenge to get it looking right.
Okay, so moving the wolves laterally. Matthew, what were some of the challenges that you encountered on creating this game?
So probably like one of the hardest things I had to deal with was like asset sort of control and source, having like a sort of just controlling like the list of all of our assets and then kind of compiling them together for our engine, because it was kind of hard and difficult to organize everything, especially at the very beginning when we didn't really know exactly what we were doing.
Okay.
But
so
towards the end, we kind of made that process a lot easier.
All right, sounds good. And Phil, what was some of the challenges? I sensed a lot of stories coming from that one.
Oh yeah, well I had this really overbearing art director. I'm joking. No, Audie was. No, I think for me the biggest issue was balancing the work for the game with other classes, because obviously we were still taking 5 classes. I also like worked 3 jobs at the time, so time management was a big problem for me. Well, everything turned out fine. I just lost sleep, but that's nothing new.
That can be recovered after graduation. All right, Dominic, what were some challenges that
So before we had started the project, I've been mostly kind of proficient in programming in the Unity engine, but since the Unreal Engine is what the school taught in and what most of the class was used to, we ended up working in that. And so I hadn't had really much experience in working in the Unreal Engine, and there were a lot of major bugs and issues that came up due to the engine that we were working in. And so like a lot of the time it felt less like me kind of coming up with new ideas and more me fighting the engine, but it kind of just became routine towards the end.
So just learning a new system to simplify that one. And then Matt, Austin.
Some of the challenges I faced were, I'd say like the wolves were definitely a bit harder to animate, but like the sheep, that was like sort of a cool problem I got to solve because they didn't have legs. So I had to like find a way. So they just kind of hover in the game, which it looks pretty cool, sci-fi-esque. But yeah, and also like trying to balance that with like other classes too. That was also a bit of a challenge, but I was able to get it done.
Yeah, Sarah, some of the challenges.
My biggest problem was probably because I was the one making the animatics. I had to draw the game visually before I actually knew what the game was, what the finalized version was going to look like. So like the farmhouse, I drew an entirely different farmhouse at first because we hadn't decided what it was going to look like yet. So having to draw the world without actually knowing what it looked like yet was a bit tricky, but it worked out in the end. Things got edited and finalized.
Okay. And then Audie, some of the challenges you ran into on your end there?
I think my biggest challenge was kind of learning how to be a leader and when to kind of like step in and then when to kind of like back off and like let the artists do their thing, and kind of streamlining communication, at least on the art side, and like how to communicate with the other departments and kind of keep everything organized.
Okay. And so both Austin and Phil, you guys mentioned time management. So how many hours a week did you guys end up putting into this outside of classes?
Can it be counted?
Yeah, that's
I don't know.
a lot. It was
lot.
a
Put
lot
quite a
of
bit of
time.
time
I'd
into it.
say, yeah, for the past like 9 months, like the process of making this game, like I can say everyone here has put in 100%, and everyone has really stepped up and filled their roles and put in the time. And I know a lot of people lost sleep to like make this game a reality.
So speaking of 100%, so I hear there's a story about a question mark that occurred on one of the projects.
Okay.
Can we explain that story a little bit there?
So I think this is just a testament to the fact that the universe doesn't like when I doubt myself. So there was one point in the game, we're using a repository called JPCatholic, which is where we would put all our art assets so that they could get them into the game. And so that's kind of like where we were keeping the game. Okay. And I made like this arch, and I didn't know if I liked it, and I didn't know if we were going to keep it in the game. So when I named the project file, I put a question mark in the name. And the repository didn't like that. It didn't like that there was a question mark symbol in this name, and it broke the repository.
So what did that entail for you guys?
Every like attempt we made to like recorrect that question mark basically was like caused errors, and there was no way we could backtrack.
Okay, and so
We were
like,
trying to.
We had to make a new repository.
so did it crash all the files that were within the repository at that moment, or?
No, it just made it so we couldn't use the repository. We had to make a new one.
Thankfully, that was one of the initial test pushes into the repository, so we hadn't actually really put a whole lot in it yet. So it wasn't too disastrous or.
So,
Although I do remember James was talking about a few months later, something else was happening with the repository. James was trying to do something. And when they cloned the repository, the question mark was cloned along with it. They were trying to do something else, and the question mark that had happened months ago that they had thought they fixed was now causing problems again. And James had to like spend I think an entire night like trying to
fix
I know
that.
he didn't go
The
to bed till,
ghost
like,
question
too
mark.
late one day.
It came back for its revenge.
The moral of the story is just don't doubt yourself, people. Just like when you do something, just like commit. Like don't put a question mark after it. Don't do it.
Strong and wrong.
If you do, fear it.
Alrighty. And then segueing to the next topic there. So how was the game testing process? How did that work for you guys? How did you set those up?
It was really fun, and I wasn't really sure what to expect when going into it. So the way we kind of did it is we would make a build of the game and then just put out like a huge PSA like, hey, we're trying to test the game. Just like anyone come in, we'll have pizza. And so a bunch of students would come in and play the game and like give us feedback. And that was actually a really, really important part of the process because having new eyes on the project allowed us to see like problems we hadn't encountered or bugs that we hadn't noticed or visual things that didn't occur to us that someone just looking at it was like, oh, that's kind of funny. So it was really important to the iterative design process and making sure the game was as polished and playable as possible.
All right. And then Austin, what was it like seeing other people play your game while you were there at the game tests?
From the ones I went to, it was kind of cool. But I mean, the ones I went to, it was before I had my animation stuck in the game, so I'm not entirely sure in terms of like what people's reactions were to that. But yeah, it's cool to see other people like play a game that you help create and put time into.
All right. And then I'll ask you the same question, David. Like, what was your experience with that?
Well, it was like Audie said, it was interesting just seeing like the people with the fresh eyes who had never seen the game kind of give their opinion on either visual direction that since we've been working on it for a while, we might not have noticed or thought was strange. But if someone who had not seen it before might think it's a certain visual decision is a little odd.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that helps with the refining of it.
Alrighty. And then from this experience, I'll let go down the line there and see how this goes out. But learning from this, what is something that you perhaps would do differently, or something that you learned going forward through this process there? And then let's start with you, Audie, and work back up through there.
I think what I learned from this is just like how much work it really takes to make a video game. Like before you go through the process, you don't really kind of understand how many roles you end up picking up too. Like everyone multitasked on this. So there wasn't any one person doing just one thing. So the other thing I learned from it was just how to be a good communicator and how to work with a team and how to hold yourself accountable so that you can do what needs to be done for the good of the group.
All right, Sarah?
Always keep the layers. When I was working on the animatic, when I was first making it, I thought I was making a rough draft of it before I would go back and finalize it. But we ended up using those draft panels for the animatic, and Marie Lillis, she went in and colored, because I had done them all in grayscale. She went back in and colored them, but because I thought I was doing a draft, I had flattened them.
Oh.
Meaning that the foreground, the midground, and the background were no longer separate layers that she could do different things on. They were then squished, so it was less painting the pieces as they were separately and having to go in and separate them all manually and then color them. So I gave her a lot of extra work by accident. So the thing I've learned to always do from now on is keep a version that still has all the layers.
All right, Austin?
I guess like always, like if you're gonna export an animation for Unreal, you gotta bake it before you export it. Because we had like there were like with the wolf in particular, like when I was doing animations for the wolves, like there was one animation that wasn't working. I'm like, why isn't it working? And I had to do a bunch of research and like figure out, I guess I gotta bake it before I export it. Yeah.
Alrighty. And then Dominic, things you learned?
Well, I definitely kind of learned to not really like Unreal by the end.
We don't blame you.
One of the main issues was one of the things about Unreal is that it has sort of two different programming environments that you can use.
Okay.
One is to use C++, which is like a common popular programming language that some game engines use. And though it's also kind of one of the more difficult languages. And so other thing that, what is that?
And then so basically learning that just program not in Unreal in the future and stick with, is that?
Yeah, mostly. Or if I do use Unreal again, definitely stick to C++, because the other environment was kind of visual, kind of drag and drop interface called Blueprint, which is what the school taught to use. But it's also kind of made for non-coders rather than programmers. Okay. So.
Alrighty, and then Phil, something you would do differently there, or?
Oh Lord, I think most of what I would do differently is time management again, but also just like even since like hindsight's 20/20. So even since just doing the props that I did, like I've learned like better modeling techniques, so I could have just made my life easier in a few situations.
Okay. All right, Matt.
One thing I would do differently is I would like to have spent more time sort of in the early design phases of the game with James, so we can like better flesh out some of like the gameplay elements earlier on, because towards like the end of the project we were still kind of making slight changes, and I kind of wish we had done those earlier.
Okay.
Because that would have helped the later stages a lot more.
Alrighty. And then David, to cap it off.
I think probably what I would do differently, I guess, is kind of a combination of what a bunch of other people have said, like the time management. Really, if we had more time to work on the project, would have been a lot easier. And but some of the animations as well, like having to work on them for a while, because the techniques some of us used took a little more time than expected.
So sounds like you guys learned quite a bit making this project there. Alrighty, and then for the moment, we're going to be going over to a commercial break, and then we'll be right back with the test play that I will be doing as I experience one of the levels of the game, with you guys commenting on the creative process behind that. And we look forward to coming back to that shortly here. Stay tuned.
matter, just go.
You'll never be able to play like I did.
He destroys the villains. He gets the girl. He even gets away with the secret weapon.
Hey!
If you were me, who would be you?
So the Broadcasting Club kind of started after TV Production 2. It's a class here on campus. We really just wanted to keep on going and do more events, learn more about live production, and we realized that live production is extremely powerful. People will go out of their way to watch something live. We kind of realized that there's a lot of things on campus that people want to watch live.
Having these broadcasts, it kind of brings the students together. If someone's not able to come to these events live, they're able to watch from their house or their home. So it kind of connects them together. I think broadcasting in general is just a great way to kind of show other people like what you're doing at the school.
It's cool because as a camera operator, we're like having live direction from the director in our ears. And so they're telling us do this or pan that way or get a creative shot, and you just kind of got to make it up on the fly, which is a cool environment. It's a different stress than directing a film.
When you're cutting in film, it's like, oh, I want to, take from this shot, or I want to take from this shot, and you can decide. Whereas here, you're kind of deciding on the moment because things are happening, and you can't just go back, while it's live to cut to a different shot.
This is really interesting to me. This is something I would like to get into after college, is the broadcasting.
And not every event is the same, so you'll run into certain problems and you'll have to troubleshoot.
It's a good place for someone who's never held a camera to grow and learn more about production.
And we have a great team. We have a great team of students, and they're all super enthusiastic about it. So it just makes the events that much more fun.
It's nice in that you don't have to be just stuck in one thing. And if you want, you can do everything. You can switch around positions and whatnot.
We're all students here. Not everyone can jump in and just start right away. We want to stress how much to learn and grow and make sure that no one's stressed. This is fun. We're doing this for fun. The reality is we're not getting millions and millions of views. We're doing this just because we want to. I've never been in a broadcast where I've never learned something new. It's not something that you can come in and say, oh, I know everything about broadcasting, and you'll be fine the entire time. You will learn something as time goes on.
The Broadcasting Club's great because right now it's really in a growing phase and it's really becoming more of its own thing. Every quarter we try to up the ante. We make it a bigger and better broadcast, and so that's really exciting. And we're also just getting more people on board, so it's a great time to be part of the Broadcasting Club.
All right, welcome back to the show today. And now we'll be joined by James Jacobus and the musician who composed the soundtrack for Shepherd of Life here with Joshua Shepherdson. Let's start with you, James. You produced the project. So what was your favorite part about making this game here?
I loved all of it, honestly. I wanted to get a project done from the very first moment I came to school here, and I wanted to get a game on Steam, and so my whole goal was rallying everybody together, and I loved the whole process. So.
Alrighty, and then Joshua, you're.
Yeah, I kind of just liked getting a sense of what this project was and kind of feeling the tone of the game and bringing that out in the music that I wrote for it.
Okay.
So I really liked kind of just trying to help elevate the ambiance of the playing experience to a different level with the music that I wrote.
Okay, and then were there any musicians, composers, or other soundtracks that kind of helped inspire you to draw from to create the ambience of the game?
Not a lot specifically. There were a few pieces that I listened to here and there. Just not even so much inspiration, but I just kind of was looking for something like that, but I didn't really find anything that I felt personally I thought fit.
Okay.
So.
And then I hear that, Dominic, did you do a little work in helping with the soundtrack design as well? Or?
Yeah, so Joshua did pretty much almost all the composition. I mostly took the MIDIs that he sent me and then kind of just put in better quality sound instrument samples, added some effects like reverb and stuff like that, and gave some of them a little bit of flair. Like of all the songs, there was only one that I had made entirely myself, but most of the work was Joshua.
All right.
So.
And then which programming did you use to compose the score for the game mostly?
Yeah, so I just use MuseScore, which is just a notation software for writing sheet music. So you can, there's a playback on it, but it doesn't like sound great. It's just mostly so you can hear how it sounds. It's not intended to export files to play as music. So.
Okay, sounds good. Alrighty, and then. As far as going from that, like, which musical instruments were you thinking? Did you have an idea from the start when they first asked you, or was that something that you collaborated with Audie?
Yeah, I mean, the musical instruments, it was kind of it depended on which level it was, because there's different themes kind of for each level, so I wanted to use the instrumentation to kind of bring out a different feel for each one. I did have kind of a short meeting with Audie towards the beginning, just to kind of talk about what we wanted each level to feel like. And we came up with some different just kind of adjectives for how we should feel for each level.
All right.
So that inspired the instruments that I chose to use for each one.
Alrighty, sounds good. And without further ado there, let's go to the game. I have played through the first process of the tutorial to figure out how to play it. And then we'll be starting with the Storm Ram section as we proceed.
So I can give you a little bit of commentary too.
All right.
So this is the Storm Ram level.
Okay.
And you're actually moving towards it. So this is the hub world. So this is like where you go to all your different levels.
Alright. So that's how that goes. And then I pick up the Storm Ram. Come here, boy. Come on. Alright. And then
Okay, so right here, if you go towards the left, you can get into the level. Yeah, right here.
And then next way. Come on. Just be my friend. I love you, Storm Ram. Blue is my favorite color. Alright. Now we are in the level. And then so the archways. Okay, these rooms drop power from Storm Sheep.
I think mine's on.
Alrighty. Okay, overcome the challenge of random dreams to the flame.
This is also not the arch with the question mark. This is a new one.
Okay.
We got rid of him.
We got rid of the
That
problematic
arch
one.
Alright, the light.
I made that one too,
Yes, Phil made that one and I colored it for him.
though. I was not the problem.
Okay. Alrighty, and then the architecture right over here, that was your designing, Phil? Or?
Well, Sarah did the concept art and then Phil modeled it and then I put the texture on. So that's kind of a lot of game design is like a lot of people will work on kind of one aspect of the game. So most of the stuff you see in here, multiple people worked on and like went through multiple different like iterations and channels.
Okay.
Everything had a lot of hands on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with this level in particular, I think, or was it the one before this that I helped set dress?
No, you did this one. This was yours.
This
Yeah.
this was the one I helped set dress. So I I helped, toward the end I didn't have a lot of modeling to do, so I ended up helping a lot with set dressing, so placing down like plants and trees and stuff.
Building the world.
Building the world.
The fun part.
Yeah. I had a lot of fun set dressing. That was
set
really
dressing
cool.
set dressing was a very fun part. Because you just got to, like, Unreal has this foliage paint tool that Matt showed me how to use because I'm like not familiar at all with Unreal. And I'm like, you just paint grass and trees and stuff on there.
It's like Minecraft with higher stakes.
All right, so now I've reached the main part of the mission. So it looks like.
Yeah, so there's like 3 distinct puzzle areas in this level, and this level in particular did go through like a lot of reiteration of design to formulate these puzzles, and that was mostly me and Matt working on a whiteboard till long hours of the night, trying to figure out the best way to make the puzzles challenging.
It's a real shame the school closes at midnight because we were there almost every night.
Yeah.
Okay, so you 2 feet over there.
Probably a good thing. It's probably going to be later.
Yeah, I'm actually sort of glad it closes at midnight. Otherwise, I just would have never left.
You guys got more sleep than you would have otherwise.
All right. So what
Bold
kind
of you to assume that they slept when they went home.
That's true.
So how much work went into it at home there for you guys?
Different things. As the producer, I was trying to organize everybody's like tasks in between meetings, but I feel like the brunt of our work got done while we were all like in our meetings. So it was during our big long Sunday meetings where we just went to the school all day as a team. And I'd buy pizza or something, but we would just sit down and work through the game together. That's how most of it got done.
Yeah, and a lot of the art we could actually do at home since most of us the artists can kind of work individually once like everyone has their task. So there's not really much that like you can do once you have like your art task in terms of collaboration. So a lot of the meetings, at least for the artists, was dropping off assets to the designers and the programmers and getting new tasks and concepts just to move forward. So it's a lot of, game design is a lot of iteration. So it's not kind of like a waterfall process, like you're constantly like backtracking and changing things and moving forward. And it's kind of a 1 step forward, 2 steps back kind of process almost.
Yeah.
Sometimes. It's really nice when you take more steps forward than back.
Tasks went back and forth the whole time. It's like we would find a new challenge, a new problem, and like from design, give art like 2 more problems. You know?
Yeah.
So.
All right, and then a question for you there, Matt. So what kind of work went into designing the levels as you went through? It looks like everyone figured out this first
Congratulations.
So like, knowing how like the levels were designed it's based entirely off kind of what the mechanics that we have in place for them. So you'll notice that like this level in particular is designed around the light bridges.
Yeah.
And knowing how those interactions work with the sheep and the player will define how we can design the levels. And I think that's like a big part of level design is that, like knowing what your mechanics are before you start, or else you're just gonna have to redo a lot of things.
Which we did.
Yeah.
A lot of it.
One of the
Yes, this corner
This
here.
is where I probably spent like 90% of testing the game, this one corner of the level right here. Because there were probably at least 10 different bugs that have arose just because this corner of the level exists. Like if you go down to the lower part, you can see there's kind of that wolf zone, and then there's the edge of the wolf zone is also overlapping the sort of 1/2 of the light bridge. And the fact that those 2 points overlap led to a lot of issues. And I had to keep going back and just kind of drag the player over here until I eventually got it working. But yeah, this was kind of the fun hunting corner because it's where all of those happened, where they all got tested.
I think I see why this is a tricky point, because I can't leave the blue sheep with the wolves.
supposed to be.
Yeah, figure it out.
Yeah.
Like there are a lot of cases where like you could make it so that you could leave the blue sheep alone. There are some cases where you like the player would get stuck in the bottom
There you
left and
go.
fell off. Sometimes you could like finish the light bridge and then walk off of it without bringing the blue sheep with you, and you could like leave the blue sheep from the light bridge without it turning off. There were just a lot of bugs that were in this particular spot.
Nope. You have all the sheep.
You can see the little graphics on screen that show you what sheep you got too.
So that way you don't lose them again, because you worked so hard to find them the first time.
I did briefly try to get like.
The thing is happening.
Oh no! Don't stop.
That's an issue that we've had for the entirety of the game's existence. Opening the doors sometimes lags the game like crazy.
We're still in the final phases of development, so although our Steam page is up and it says coming soon, we're still ironing out the final polished tasks.
Oh, I guess we could talk about Big Chonk.
Who's Big Chonk?
Okay, so when I I did all the characters, I made all the characters for the game. And early in the wolf design process, I had an alternate version of the wolf where he was a little chonky. And he was like really large. And so we were toying with the idea of like having like a big bad wolf. And we called him Big Chonk, and he did not end up making it in the game because he was a little too big, but we know about Big Chonk.
Like Indiana Jones, I'm just rolling it. He's so chunky.
Yeah. You got it, you're on the right track. You're doing it. Don't doubt yourself. Learn from my mistakes. Learn from my mistakes. Oh, there you go.
Look
Proud
at
of
you.
you.
All right.
Yeah.
Stay back, guys.
Even if we don't have faith in you, Jafar does. We have faith in you.
I have faith in you. You're doing great, sweetie. Yay!
All right.
You
So
got it.
So the big break point was that bridge there.
Yeah.
All right. And then a little bit, because level design is absolutely gorgeous. And so some of the people may be thinking, so what exactly is happening? So Audie, would you mind going into a little bit of the story behind the game?
Okay, yeah, sure. So the game itself, I kind of came up with the story for it with James, like in a little club we had like a long time ago, like I think our sophomore year here. And we wanted to do something that was like kind of Bible related, and the game didn't end up being that, but it kind of has roots in the Good Shepherd story. So right now, who plays Shepherd? His sheep have been frightened away from the barn by these shadow wolves, and basically have to get them all back to the barn and get them to safety because people of this world kind of rely on the light of the sheep to survive. About just kind of the world context. There's more of that on our website. If you want to learn more, check out our website, shepherdoflife.com.
I think it's brought up in the game, but what was the name?
It's okay. So a fun story about that. Themis is actually one of the moons of Saturn, but it was only observed once back in like the 1940s, and then disappeared and was never seen again. So I named the world after that moon that disappeared because I'm a space nerd, and I thought it would be cool.
Not a bad reason.
This puzzle one actually took me a minute to figure out. By a minute, I mean like many minutes.
All right. So all right. So what? Let's see. What work went into the design of the wolves? They look like they.
Well.
So the idea behind the wolves was that they were kind of the opposite of the sheep. So we really wanted to, from the beginning, use very like stark contrast between light and dark to kind of drive home the aesthetic. So when we had light sheep, we thought, well, the opposite of that is shadow wolves. So we wanted to really kind of embrace the contrast between the two. And so the wolves, they're kind of like a black hole, so they like absorb light that they come into contact with, which is why the sheep are afraid of them. But the light sheep, like their light is so powerful that if there's enough light sheep to kind of match the number of wolves, like the light is too powerful for the darkness to kind of stand in the way of.
Okay. And that is, I'm liking the effect of the flame, the green flame coming off the wolves there. And then was that Marie who did the lighting work on those, or?
Marie did, she helped Sarah with the animatics and she helped me with texturing. Dominic and Matt did the visual effects on like the sheep and the wolves there.
And Phil did
Mostly
nothing
Dominic.
with characters.
Yeah, mostly.
Yeah.
Dominic did a lot of
Dominic did most of the
I kind of taught
effects.
myself to do particle effects in 2 weeks, and then came up with like all the wolf effects and staff effects and sheep
Yeah.
effects.
How many wolves are there?
There's 5, yeah.
How many sheep do I have? 5. I'm sorry, but I don't have sheep to spare. Methinks that would still get me across that chasm of death. There are no sheep that I.
So close. So close.
So close. You're almost there, honey.
All right. Let me see. So if I can do this, let's see. Can I do long range commands? How long range commands can I try?
Oh, he doesn't like
Not
that.
really.
'Cause then, yeah, you don't want to lock yourself back there.
You're really close, man.
You're so close. You're so close.
It's so far. What do I do?
Well, while he's
Did you guys,
struggling with this challenge, I think something kind of interesting to talk about with the challenge of game design is getting like the aesthetics and the design to work together, because that kind of seems like a given, but when you want to create a compelling game, like making like your visuals and the way your game is played like compatible is really, really important. So all of our visuals and design we tried to make work together so that it all makes sense and it all feels very cohesive and just satisfying.
I think I did it.
You did it! Yay!
We're so proud of you,
We're so
Nick.
proud of you.
Congratulations.
Oh my gosh.
Good
you
job,
did
Paperless.
it.
All right.
It's the final.
It's the
This
final
is my favorite part.
This
of
is the cool
level.
part.
This is the coolest part. Where are you going?
You've been there. You've been there.
He doesn't want to see it.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
Why are you running?
I'm scared, guys. Okay.
No,
it's
don't be
really
scared.
dark in this forest.
It is pretty dark.
All right. Let's see. So it looks like there are 3
Yeah.
little pressure plates, and I've got 3 blue sheep. So,
It's,
so the
it's
math
as if that was meant to be like that.
Quick math.
So the math looks like it's lining. Oh, got to be a little closer.
Ooh.
Come on, sheepy boy.
So I actually personally worked on this end level sequence.
This.
Wait, there's a sequence coming?
Yep.
Yeah.
You'll see. Just
You'll
go.
see.
This will be all James's work.
Okay,
His
so
magic.
now it's. All right, and then there's a plot twist where the fire ram attacks me, right?
Well,
you gotta call him too.
Can I talk about the
Come to me,
meeting
my
with
fire
Fire Sheep?
ram.
Yay, you got him.
Oh, I feel like that would hurt my my character.
No, you're immune to it. He's here. Yeah.
So I'm a being.
You
with
got
pure
him.
energy.
Yay.
Cool.
You saved the fire
I will
sheep.
take credit for the Fire Sheep existing at all.
Flame sheep, yeah.
Yeah.
So then I hit continue for your cutscene.
That's the end of the cutscene. It brings you back to the farm now, and now you could continue to the next level.
Okay. So yeah, exploring around. So this is.
You're
where
back in the
tutorial-
farm hub world area. That's over the first level area.
Yeah, so this is the first level for the tutorial.
Yeah.
Well, locking in the tutorial. And then over here was where the tutorial began, showing
That's where
you.
the very beginning of the game is.
Yeah.
And then this is the way we go to see, and then I took the path to go this way.
Mhm.
I've completed that level. And then the other worlds are, it looks like we would go over here next if we wanted to continue the gameplay.
This one's my personal favorite level.
Yeah,
this one's really cool.
Those are really cool.
Fire realm.
I made that gate right there.
Yeah, Phil
You did?
modeled that.
proud of
I
you.
did the concept for that. Phil modeled it, and then Marie textured it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, ooh, I like that little
Design.
the reflection. Alrighty. And then I think this one was actually my favorite when I ran through it in the test, but
The shadow sheep level.
the shadow sheep level, which just kind of seems conflicting to the sheep light idea.
Yeah.
What was the idea behind the shadow sheep?
He's a twist on kind of our mechanics. So one of the game design techniques that we wanted to use is called Kisho Tenketsu, which sounds interesting, but it's a technique that Nintendo uses where they present like a simple mechanic, they teach you how to use it, then they put a twist on it, and then you use that twist in like this final kind of challenge at the end. So our whole game has like kind of little subsections of this Kisho Tenketsu, and then the black sheep is kind of like the overarching like twist on the light mechanic. So you'll have to see that when you play the game, when you download it
Alrighty.
on Steam.
Well, thank you very much for bringing this. We'll slide into a break there, and then we'll talk about where you can get the game and the merchandise you guys have for it. All right.
Sounds good.
Join us shortly.
Wait! Okay, now, from the beginning.
Coffee House is similar to your high school talent shows in that it's a talent show, but it's way better because generally the acts are way better, but also they give you free food and coffee.
There's always a lot of anticipation for it. So you'll be talking with friends like, oh, what are you going to do this year? Do you want to get together and do this or that? There are so many talented people at the school.
Some people read poetry, some people act a little bit.
There's a lot of people who sing, some people do stand-up, some people do things like improv comedy.
Just a lot of, like, a great mix of different acts.
I get to meet all these different kinds of people and just become better friends with them.
People here are so talented with music, they like have their original songs, and I really look forward to those especially.
Everybody sort of gets to show off what they can do to everybody else, and it's really kind of cool to see.
I see people who are usually pretty introverted and quiet just come out and seize the opportunity and do something that I had no idea that they could do.
So we have a lot of really talented singers doing their thing. I've also seen in Coffee House the single best kazoo act I've seen in my life.
Coffee House, I think, is a really cool event because what it does is it lets students who are freshmen and seniors perform alongside each other.
It brings a lot of unity because a lot of people want to do things together. There are a lot of team acts.
But it's a nice chance to get out of your shell and just be a really close-knit community.
And so regardless of what program you're in here, almost everybody comes to Coffee House. And Coffee House, you really get some of everybody and almost everybody coming together to kind of just enjoy talent and coffee.
My name is Margie Curran. I'm an actress, and this is why I create. So I create through storytelling. I try to portray human emotions and what a person is feeling and their life story through the character. if you're playing a character that's stronger, like if you're playing this like tough woman, then after working on that character, I find in my everyday life feeling more tough as a person, which is really cool because every character you play, you have a little bit of them in you. When you can play another character believably that has like good qualities, then you notice like, oh, actually, I could be a better person if I really wanted to be because I just played a better person, so maybe I should just play a better person in real life. I love it. I love acting. I love learning about myself and learning about other people. It forces you to let go of insecurities and let go of fear. I think fear cripples creativity. And so I think every time you do a scene, you have to like shut it down, like shut down fear and just like stand in the light and like be seen. And that's really scary. But I think I'm very afraid. Like I get very scared, like before scenes, and it's like every time I do a scene, it's like a self-challenge because I'm aware that I'm feeling afraid, but you can't let that stop your creativity. I think the opposite of fear is hope, and so instead of worrying about all the things that could go wrong when you show your art, focus on all the things that could go right and all the people that you could touch, and it might not speak to everybody, but it might speak to some people, and it can impact them in a very profound way. Everyone has something to say that hasn't been said before. And I think they just need the courage to say it, even if they're wrong. And then, you know, you're gonna be wrong in your art and you're gonna fail. And I think it's important to just keep creating and keep going. My name is Margie Curran, and this is why I create.
Welcome back, guys, and now it's time for our favorite part of the show, the plugins. All right, and Audie, so I hear that you're the mastermind trying to get this marketed for you guys. So
Yeah, so I'm kind of in charge of all like the social media and stuff. So you can download the game for free on Steam September 4th because legally we can't charge any money for it because we use student licenses. So because we're all broke now from making this game, you can also support us by buying our merchandise, which will be available very soon, and I will link that to our website. And so kind of in our merchandise, on our little store page, we're gonna have t-shirts, coffee mugs, buttons, stickers, like you name it. We're looking into plushies because I think sheep plushies would be really cute.
I'd buy them.
Will there be a big chunk plushie?
There will be a big chunk plushie.
Yes, please.
Hell yeah.
Plushies are
for what you prefer.
It's
Will there be a
hard.
mushroom?
Stop saying it.
There needs to be a mushroom plushie.
And we're also going to put the soundtrack up for sale too, so you can buy the soundtrack because it's beautiful and I love it. So, yeah, and then you can always check out our website, shepherdoflight.com, for updates, for our social media links. We have Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and just for any Shepherd of Light content, it's all there. So,
and then if people have other questions, can you guys be reached on your Facebook page? Or?
Yes, we can actually be reached through any of our social media platforms. We also have a frequently asked question and answers section on our website. So you can submit questions there, or maybe a question that you have has already been asked and you can find the answer on our website. So website's important.
Alrighty, sounds good. And I think that'll do it for today. And we'll cut away to a trailer here and we'll be good to go. Thank you guys for joining us today and have a good one.
Y'all.
Take care.
God bless.
Yay.